Well, here we are, ladies and gentlemen, live from the Emerald City in Seattle, Washington, the UFO, Bigfoot, and paranormal hotspot of the Pacific Northwest, coming directly to you, listening in around the world. This, my friends, is Spaced Out Sunday, and I'm your host, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer, occupying the captain's chair tonight for SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show, including all of our listeners on the digital side on Revolution Radio. And don't forget, you can always find our archive shows for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do us all a favor, will you, and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store, and catching up on all the SOR news at the SOR News Wire, and so much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by donating to Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. And tonight we are going to have a real special show. This is a fantastic opportunity for me because I literally have talked Peter Davenport from the National UFO Reporting Center, our good friend, into spending an entire hour with us at the top of the show. And we will be talking about sighting reports. We will be talking about all sorts of manner of UFOs, UAP, and what's happening out there in our nighttime and daytime skies. So I'm looking forward to this. Then we've got a really interesting author that I'm going to interview a little bit later on at the 10 o'clock hour. Her name is Katherine Chiljan, and she has written a book regarding Shakespeare and whether indeed that gentleman, the person that lived on Stratford-Upon-Avon, was indeed the person who wrote all those classic stage plays. So we're going to get into the mystery of Shakespeare Suppressed in the second hour. But first of all, we're going to bring Peter Davenport aboard and introduce him to the world again tonight. Peter, are you there?
I am here, Michael, and delightful to be here again with you. Having an hour to talk about my favorite subject, UFOs, is a real luxury. I'm indebted to you, and it's always fun to work with you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this is just a pleasure for us to be able to snag a little bit of your time here every Sunday night. And tonight we have the opportunity to talk a little bit longer. We can do whatever we'd like for the next hour. By the way, I'll just ask real quick, because we were wondering whether you were able to hear my intro and the intro music while you were waiting. Could you hear that?
No, I couldn't. And not until you introduced me towards the end of it did I hear anything except a few snippets.
Well, you know what that means, I believe, then, that the music that I've got on my program here for the intro obviously mutes all the potential guests that are waiting in the wings as well. So that answers that mystery. We'll have to figure out if we can deal with that later on. But anyway, it was a good intro anyway. Build it up, and now we're here.
Good.
Well, tell me, first of all, how was the weather out there? Because I'll tell you what, Peter, as I was mentioning to you before air, it was literally 84 degrees in Seattle today. This is May 10th, 2020, and this is springtime here in Seattle. It's not supposed to be 84 degrees. It's incredible.
That sounds like the 4th of July, not the 10th of May.
Yes. Yes.
Gee. Well, the weather out here is gorgeous. I'm about, so people can imagine in their mind's eye or see in their mind's eye where I'm located. I'm about 40 miles west of Spokane and 10 miles south. So I'm out in the wheat-growing country of eastern Washington, a great place to live. I'm right on the edge of a golf course. So while I'm sitting here doing my UFO work, I look out onto a beautifully green golf course, the Harrington Country Club and Golf Club. So.
Oh, that's very nice. How
beautiful place.
Are they back at work or allowing people to golf these days?
Yes, golfing has not been impaired. People are supposed to keep their distance from one another, I understand. I don't know all the details. I'm not a member of the club. I'm really not a golfer at all, but that's my understanding. And but it hasn't. The shutdown has not impaired the activities of the club at all. And I think the only thing that was impaired to a minor degree was they couldn't have guests in the country club restaurant.
Yes, right, I'll bet.
And that's now open, I understand. So.
Oh, good.
We were fairly lightly touched by the COVID-19 epidemic.
Yeah.
Pandemic, I guess it's called. We've had only 2 cases in Lincoln County, so.
Oh my.
We're feeling pretty fortunate out here.
Well, that's one of the good things is there is a lot of space out where you are, so people obviously can have that social distancing with no problem out there in Lincoln County. That's fantastic.
That's right.
Wow.
So social distancing is almost a natural condition in Lincoln County.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Well, since we spoke last week, I know you were telling me that there was some interesting sighting reports. I don't know if you want to start with sighting reports or we want to start with another subject first and end with those, whatever you'd like to do. We've got a full hour, you and I.
Well, I've got about 4 very interesting recent reports sitting in front of me on my computer screen. Why don't we start with that, and then we'll maybe get into how it was I became a UFO investigator and why I do the things I do in the field of ufology.
Oh, that would be fun. Give some folks some in-depth history here of how young Peter Davenport started out in this strange field.
Yeah. One thing I've not been able to figure out is why UFOs are such a strong draw for me. Why it's such a preoccupation for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has me a little confused, frankly.
Peter, that is something that I've always pondered as well. Why am I always interested in this, and why have I always been interested in this? It wasn't like I could say I had some major abduction experience as a child or something that just, really took my attention that direction. I don't know. It's just always been there for me as well.
Yeah. It's always been a mystery to me, except for my first sighting, a dramatic sighting I had as a young lad back in 1954. It was the summer because people were all wearing T-shirts at the time. That makes it June, July, or August in St. Louis, Missouri, where I was at the time.
Ah.
Maybe later in the program I can share with our listeners what it was I experienced that goes a long way towards explaining why I'm a UFO investigator and why I'm so interested in the subject.
Oh, that would be a good thing to relate because I know the story and it's fascinating to me.
It's fascinating to me still too.
Oh, good.
But why don't I start with a couple reports here? The first one comes from the 1st of May. I think that was Thursday of last week, if I'm not mistaken. A woman from Vancouver Island, just north of Seattle, north of the Olympic Peninsula, submitted a report on the 2nd of May about a sighting that she had, very dramatic sighting, as she stared out over North Saanich Bay, straight north of Victoria, BC. She writes that at 6:29 on that Thursday morning, she was admiring the water, the beautiful water they have up there, and suddenly her attention was drawn to a very, very bright, pulsating, flashing white light that was streaking across North Saanich Inlet, very high speed, and it was turning, and as they say in the fighter pilot business, it was jinking, turning very suddenly, making abrupt turns. And they live near a Canadian military helicopter base, so they're fully aware of what those aircraft can do and what they can't do. but the light was very prominent that morning. It was hard or impossible to miss, and it was moving so fast. When it went by her, she didn't have time to get her cell phone camera out of her pocket. And she knows that it was unusual because as it went by her position, totally silent, by the way, Michael, it scared a flight of stellar blue jays that were nesting or roosting in a nearby tree, very close to her. And her impression was that they were spooked because of the presence of this object. So that was a very interesting incident and very well written. I talked to the woman, and she was a very eloquent young woman, so I suspect she's an excellent witness.
Yeah. Well, that's a really interesting sighting. I mean, the idea that this object must have been close enough to startle blue jays that were close enough to her that she would recognize them being startled. So this thing was not just way off in the distance, it sounds like.
Yep. It was fairly close to her when it went by at high speed. And the interesting thing is no sound. Had it been a helicopter or a jet fighter or any kind of terrestrial aircraft that we're aware of, it would have generated probably a very loud sound.
Yeah. And, by the way, if no sound was emitted, you wonder why the blue jays were so startled, you know?
That's a good point.
It
must have been shocked by the brilliance of light or by some other force field that we're not aware of. Yeah,
it's possible.
And I think animals are sensitive. I'm sorry, I stepped on you there. I was going to add, we know that animals are sensitive to things around us that we are not. So I think your point is a good one.
Well, and we've all heard of bird flocks and geese and those kinds of things using the electromagnetic effects of the planet maybe to navigate. Maybe they experienced some kind of a problem in the force, in the electromagnetic force of the atmosphere that maybe they picked up as well. Yeah, that's fascinating. The fact that those birds were startled for some reason when that thing came by. Yeah, good report.
Yeah, it was. And again, I emphasize that the woman who submitted that report was very convincing, very sincere, very eloquent, and she submitted a very nice written report. So I think she's a very capable person in every respect. And she emphasized how strange it looked to her when she and I talked. So it was quite a good report.
Yeah, and turning abruptly, that kind of thing. That is the kind of motion that Commander David Fravor, said about the Tic Tac UFO. The thing was, matter of fact, he said that when he first saw that thing hovering low over the ocean in his FA-18 jet, he said it was bouncing back and forth over the one patch of the water of the ocean like a ping pong ball. He said, just rapidly bouncing back and forth, which is impossible for any kind of a aircraft to do without the inertia just killing whatever would be inside it. So this object that this woman sighted over Vancouver Island, or north of Vancouver Island, was doing some abrupt changes in course as well, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's exactly what she says. And she emphasized that point, that she couldn't imagine what could possibly have made those maneuvers, and in the dark as well. So
yeah,
that makes it even more peculiar.
Oh, fascinating. Okay. What else you got?
Another one comes from the 4th of May, just a few days ago, 6 days ago, I guess. A woman who describes herself as an academician. She's also a grandmother. She explains that in her hometown of Colbert, Washington, just north of Spokane, probably less than 10 miles, on the 4th of May at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, she and her husband were outside admiring the beautifully clouded sky, partially clouded sky, when they heard an aircraft coming towards them, taking off from Spokane International Airport, Geiger Field it's called.
Yeah.
And they both looked at this aircraft and they were shocked to see a small tubular object following behind a commercial airplane that was taking off. By all measures, Michael, there should be nothing in proximity to a commercial airliner when it's in an airspace, a control zone like that. And as they watched it, it flew into a cloud, and both of them flew out of the cloud. They were in the same relative position to one another, and the object was approximately one fuselage length of the aircraft behind. This peculiar object was lagging behind the airplane. And I spoke with that woman at great length, and she, like the first witness, or the witness in the first case I cited tonight, was very convincing, very eloquent, very sincere sounding, and a little bit alarmed by it. She could not imagine what could be in proximity to an airliner that had just taken off from an airport.
Oh, my. That is shocking. That's amazing.
Yes, it is. And
so this was not a commercial jet that was landing. This was a commercial jet that was just taking off.
Taking off.
And
that's right.
And obviously, that is one of the slower parts of the trip. Obviously, when they just kind of take off from the airport, they're building up their speed, they're climbing at the same time. And she's saying that about the same distance behind the commercial aircraft, about the same length of the craft, was a tubular shaped object. Wow.
Yeah, very small, clearly much smaller than the aircraft itself. She provided an illustration, and I believe I'm correct in saying our webmaster has posted that to our website at ufocenter.com on our homepage, so people can see what the witness described, so they can understand how much smaller this object was than the aircraft. But whether small or large, moving fast or what have you, it should not have been in that airspace at all.
Oh, so, yeah. Oh, my.
This is a very unusual case. And it's reminiscent of a case that I received back in year 2000, June of 2000. I got a call on the hotline from a young commercial pilot with an airline transport pilot rating who described how on the 22nd of June 2000, he was flying very close to Providence, Rhode Island. He was 7,500 feet above ground level. When he looked out ahead of his aircraft, he saw an object. At first he thought it was a soaring bird, and he didn't pay too much attention to it, but he glanced down in his cockpit for just a second and glanced back at that object to make sure his aircraft was going to clear it, when all of a sudden he realized that the object is streaking towards his airplane. And he estimates it went under his aircraft within 50, that's 50 vertical feet of his starboard wing. And these two cases are somewhat similar in the sense that they both have an object in proximity, an anomalous object in proximity to a commercial airliner. So,
oh my!
These happen all the time, and when the Navy came out with its videotape, I was not terribly surprised. I was, in fact, one of the few people who were not surprised at all that these things happened, because I've been receiving reports like that, not frequently, but from time to time, and posting them. So
yes, Yeah, I know you have. Matter of fact, I know you correspond with Dr. Richard Haynes as well, who has his commercial pilot reporting UFO agency, NARCAP. He's since retired, but when he was doing that, I think he said he had over 3,000 AirCat reports of commercial, military, and private pilots reporting UFOs in close proximity like that.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. He does an excellent job of it.
And by the way,
very skilled and devoted. Yeah.
Oh, he is. Boy, ex-NASA scientist, during the Mercury and Apollo days. It's just a fascinating story that he has out there. He swears that these commercial pilots are seeing these things all the time. And, it's kind of amazing as well that we just got the U.S. Navy reports came out, a week and a half ago now, confirming that those gun camera footage, videos were unidentified. They didn't know what they were. They weren't ours or the Soviets or the Chinese, that kind of thing. But there were 3 videos that they released again. The FLIR 1 video, which was the Tic Tac one in 2004. And then there was the Go Fast and the Gimbal videos from the USS Roosevelt on the East Coast in 2015. Yep. And the reason I bring that up is that there was a pilot report from one of the, he was either a naval aviator or it was an Air Force pilot, said that he literally was buzzed right by his cockpit. He said, I don't know how close it was, but it was even closer than 50 feet, I believe he said, by a square translucent object with like a globe inside it. Came right by his cockpit window, streaked by. He said so fast he couldn't believe it. But that is another example of, pilots that are seeing things just almost like playing with them up there. And this was a daytime report you were talking about, this tubular object following this commercial jet. That's a fascinating idea that these things are out there as we speak.
Yeah. I agree with your statement, Michael, that commercial pilots are probably seeing these objects much more frequently than they're reporting them. And this maybe towards the end of this hour, we can talk about some of the past sighting reports that I've taken from pilots that appear on a short list of some of the more dramatic sightings that I've had reported to me over the last 26 years or so.
Oh yeah, so, that's like your Bible that you carry with you. I know that one. All of those sighting reports that you've accumulated over the many decades that you've been doing this, it's got to be like the top list. You've got to turn that into a book at one point yourself, Peter. I know you've got it all printed up, but at one point that would be a very good thing for people to share, I'm sure.
Yeah, just a chapter for each one of these incidents would constitute a book, I think.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, listen, we're at the bottom of the hour here. We're going to go to our, about a 6-minute break. So you've got plenty of time to do whatever you need to do for the next 6 minutes. And then we're going to come back and spend a whole another half hour together. How about that?
I look forward to it.
Okay. We'll be right back, folks, on Spaced Out Sunday.
Hey, Spaced Out Radio fans. It's John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from vans to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at Kajans.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you addicted to the woo? Good. Me too. This is Dave Scott, and you can woo it up with me every Monday through Friday, starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, for 3 hours of great entertainment in the subjects you love. UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, intuition. Yes, we hit it all 5 days a week. Look for us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, my friends, we own the night.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Need that weekend supernatural fix? Look no further than Spaced Out Saturday right here at spacedoutradio.com. I'm Stacey Edwards.
And I'm John Edwards. Each Saturday night, Stacey and I are going to bring you the best in paranormal, cryptids, UFOs, you name it, and we're going there.
It's all about the experience and to share the knowledge with all of you.
So tune us in every Saturday night on Spaced Out Saturdays, starting at 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Okay, we are back here at Spaced Out Sunday for a, my gosh, May 10th already, 2020. The springtime is upon us, and the good weather is approaching, at least in the Pacific Northwest out here. Seattle, Washington had 84 degrees today. Out there in eastern Washington where Peter Davenport is, it was a beautiful day out on the golf course. And, of course, Peter, we have to realize that just a couple days ago they were having snow in Maine, I understand.
Yeah. I've seen snow within the past 2 weeks out here.
Oh, my goodness. Isn't that weird? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's fascinating to me that the weather is I mean, it's so hot. I know it's so hot down in Las Vegas already. It's getting close to 100 degrees down there. And of course the snow is still pelting them in the northeast, and we've got unseasonably warm weather in the Pacific Northwest. So I don't know if it's global warming or if it's the coming of another ice age. We just never know.
Yeah. I'm amused by those people who try to predict the future of the weather patterns. Certainly, maybe within a day or two they can do it, or within a week at most, but people who try to tell us what the weather's going to be like in a year or two it's problematic. I don't think they really can do that yet.
Isn't it interesting, Peter? But in the old days, they used to use that Farmer's Almanac and just predict out a couple of years at least, on what people should do with their crops and all that kind of thing. I don't know how they did that back in those days, and they still do that.
Yeah, they still do it, and they still sell the Farmer's Almanac. It's a big sale item in New England states where I used to live. I know that for a fact. But how accurate it is anybody's guess.
Yeah,
so
I'll bet. Well, we left off with some amazing pilot reports. You've got a commercial pilot in June of 2000 saying that he was seeing an object streak past his cockpit almost 50 feet below his starboard wing. And then, of course, before that, just this last May 4th, just 6 days ago in north of Spokane in the afternoon, 2:00 in the afternoon in Geiger Field, there was a small tubular silent craft pacing a commercial airliner as it was taking off from the airport. Amazing stuff.
It is, and it reminded when we entered the break, we were talking about, as you say, airline incidents, UFOs seen from commercial airliners, and it triggered a memory in me about an incident, very dramatic incident that occurred on the 17th of November, 1995. I have the citation in front of me. A bunch of people in Maine, state of Maine, along the coast of Maine, reported that a blue-green object, almost translucent, embedded in a big cloud of blue-green light, went streaking down the coast of Maine. And it passed over Massachusetts, perhaps New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, was reported from New York State, and points south, New Jersey as well. But I cite that case because we were talking about cases reported to the FAA. This incident was reported to the FAA by about 36 airliners that saw the object. And after the first one had gone down the coast, a second one was reported. Where it had come from, I don't know. But it streaked down, followed apparently the same track that the first one had. And the interesting point about this is there was a cluster of orange objects hovering and orbiting around a mountain up in Orange, Vermont. And the young woman was driving back, I think it was on a Friday night. She was driving back to join her family on their mountaintop farm, and she saw those things orbiting around the mountain. And she took one look at those and decided, family or no family, she was not going up on that mountain. And she drove down to her neighbors, and she and her neighbors stood and watched those 6 orange objects. The reason I mention them, Michael, is that at one point they were seen to suddenly accelerate to the south just about the time that the second blue-green object looked like a mushroom top.
Yeah.
Went streaking down the coast, and we have one witness that puts those 2 objects together in proximity to one another. Not only the blue-green mushroom top shaped object, but 6 orange objects streaking down the coast, east coast of the United States in the same formation. It was a very dramatic night on the hotline. But that's the type of report that I get from time to time.
Yeah. Oh, that would have been an amazing, that would have been a flap. That would have been people all over the East Coast picking that thing up, it sounds like.
Yeah, and the FAA reported it to me, and they're the ones who reported to me that approximately 3 dozen airliners had reported it to Boston Center, and it was a very good report. So, these things are happening all the time.
You know, it must be quite dramatic, Peter, when you get a phone call from an FAA tower, and those guys obviously know what they're doing. They are not making any prank calls, but they are calling you and telling you that they've got reports, or do they try to tell you what they're seeing as well?
Well, on a few occasions, they've reported what their operators have seen. In fact, one case comes to mind. I can tell you the date. It was Friday, the 4th of July, 1997. I think I have my date correct. The first call we got was from an FAA air traffic control operator in Paducah, Illinois. He reported that he was looking to the north out of his tower, and a blue-green streak of light came down out of the sky vertically at very, very high speed, was his impression. And it disappeared from his sight beyond his effective horizon. So it was probably a large distance from him. But that was the first of many, many reports we took from all over the Midwest that night, from people who claimed that they had seen something very unusual. And it was very effectively investigated by David Marler, the one-time MUFON State Director for Illinois, and now published author on the subject of UFOs. He now lives in Albuquerque, I believe.
Right. Yeah.
He he talked with a number of witnesses in Illinois and Missouri who had seen that object, and it allegedly stopped in a number of locations. One young couple, were parked out in a remote area, and this thing came right up to their car, they asserted.
You know,
the daylights out of them.
This reminds me of one of those opening scenes of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, you know, where there's like a giant aerial shot of like a valley, you know, all the lights of the community on and everything, and then, you know, some strange objects are flying overhead, and no one really knows about it at the time. And then all of a sudden, you know, Rory Neary pulls up across to this train track, remember, in his truck, and all of a sudden this giant light appears above his truck, and you know, everything goes crazy in his vehicle. And I remember the mailboxes on the rural road next to him were shaking, you know, at the same time. I just love those kinds of scenes where people are literally, I mean, my gosh, can you imagine this young couple being in their car and seeing a blue-green light streak right up to them?
Yeah. I think it was a disc-shaped craft, but they were very good reports, and the people who reported to my organization and to MUFON were very convincing, not only in their numbers, but in the quality of reports they submitted to all of us. It was a good good case.
You know, Peter, it's just always astonishing to me that these objects, whatever they are, if they're extraterrestrial or whatever, would actually do this. You know, literally, they would. You would think that they would be intelligent enough to realize that this is totally going to ruin someone's day or evening, and basically put them in distress for the very least. And I'm wondering why they are doing that. It's just a fascinating. Maybe they're just trying to get us used to seeing them. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're addressing the very reason that I'm so transfixed on this subject, Michael. As you know, have known for 25 years, it's one of my greatest passions is trying to explain what these things are, where they come from, what their purpose is here, if they have a purpose, and what they're trying to do.
Yeah. Matter of fact, this might be a great opportunity if you want. We've got plenty of time to explain that first sighting that you had as a child that maybe kind of put you on this path.
Yeah. And it was not only I who had it. If it had just been I by myself, I don't think I'd even talk about it. But hundreds of people at a drive-in theater at the St. Louis airport saw this object. They were so taken by it that they were all getting out of their cars and ignoring the movie and walking in the direction where this object was hovering for at least a few seconds off to the east of our location. There used to be a drive-in theater on the south side of the St. Louis airport, Lambert Field, and it was removed to make way for the Air National Guard building complex there. But I and my father and mother and brother drove out to the airport one summer evening. I think it was 1954 because I remember the car we were driving. It was a 1953 Studebaker. And we had that car for only a very short period of time. And we dropped my father off, who had to work that evening on the north side of the airport. My mother, brother, and I then drove around to the south side of the airport to the drive-in theater. And while we were watching a movie, a disturbance started brewing in the theater that was quite significant. And we didn't know what it was, what was causing it. We didn't know if it was a fire or somebody was injured or a fight or a riot or something like along those lines. And about this time, three gentlemen, middle-aged, I remember this image very clearly in my mind's eye, walked in front of our car, and it sort of annoyed me because they were blocking the screen. And they were looking up to my right, straight ahead of them. And I looked out the side window of that car, and there was a fire engine red object, the shape of a rugby football, almost so bright it was painful to look at it, I recall. I didn't want to look at it. It was so bright. And while I was looking at it, just for a few seconds, while it hovered almost motionless in the night sky, it suddenly accelerated and went high up into the sky and tipped its nose down and shot back down and followed an S-shaped curve along the night sky, against the night sky, and went behind McDonnell Aircraft Corporation and was gone from our sight. What we didn't know at the time, the three of us, was that my father was in the air traffic control center on the north side of the airport, and he was looking at it together with the other operators who were there, looking at it with binoculars. They couldn't figure out what it was either. And we all agreed on what we had seen, the color, what the object had done, and that, I believe, Michael, that incident, that sighting, I think it was probably July of 1954, is the reason that I'm on a program with Michael W. Hall, the paranormal attorney, talking about UFOs, because it planted a seed in me, and I've not been able to shake that interest.
Oh my goodness. So how old were you then in 1954 when you saw this dramatic sighting?
I was 6.5 2.5 years of age.
Oh, my goodness.
I remember elements of that sighting as clearly as I would, I believe, if it had happened just last night.
Yeah, I'll bet. You know, I remember certain things from my childhood as if it was yesterday. It's just the strange, and so other things I totally have forgotten about, but it's amazing how riveting some of those experiences can be for young kids. And by the way, do you have any recollection of what movie was playing at the time when you were at the drive-in theater that night?
I don't, and many people have asked me that. That would help us pin down the date, but
that's funny. Yeah,
it may have been a Doris Day picture. It could have been Please Don't Eat the Daisies, but
yeah.
I may be totally out of kilter on that.
Well, that's interesting that pops into your head, because you never know, your subconscious might be telling you something. Yeah. Fascinating.
I don't know what year Please Don't Eat the Daisies came out, but I remember that picture, and I know we saw that at the drive-in theater. I just don't remember which trip it was to the drive-in that we saw that movie on.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Well, that's fascinating, the idea that your father was at the airport seeing the same object.
Yeah. And if this had happened to me yesterday, I would have gotten very busy triangulating, drawing a straight line from the air traffic control tower in the direction they were looking, and draw a straight line from where we were at the theater, and those two straight lines would intersect where the object was hovering, and we could figure out how far it was from us, and therefore how large it was and how fast it moved. But when that object accelerated, Michael, it went from my far right to gone over the horizon to my quartering left in about 2 seconds, from a dead stop to gone out of sight.
Oh my!
It was moved at a blistering pace, unimaginably fast velocity.
Yeah.
So
that's exactly what these fighter pilots are telling us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And by the way, Please Don't Eat the Daisies with Doris Day was released in March 31st, 1960. So maybe that wasn't the movie.
No, that couldn't have been the movie then.
Yeah. But David Niven and Doris Day. Great movie.
I'd forgotten that David Niven was in that one of my favorite actors.
Oh, yes. Yeah. You know, those actors back in those days could do dramatic roles, and they could do comedy as well. It's amazing, the versatility that those guys had, and it just was almost effortless. We took it for granted back in those days, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well,
anyway, that explains why I am a UFO investigator and the director of the National UFO Reporting Center. And it touches on another subject that I'd like to share with our listeners. I get calls all the time from generally older people who say, Mr. Davenport, are you interested in past sighting reports or just current ones? And I assure them that I'm as interested in a sighting of a UFO that occurred 8 decades ago as one that occurred 8 minutes ago. And if any of our listeners have had UFO sightings at any time during their life, I'd like to encourage them to go to our website, ufocenter.com, and submit a written report, because when it comes time to leave this planet, as we all do, if you haven't recorded that information, it all goes with you when you leave the planet. And that's valuable information. The sighting some of our listeners may have had in the 40s, 50s, 60s, or beyond could have a significant bearing on reports that we've already received. So I'd encourage people to take a few minutes to write out a detailed report of what they saw and submit it using our online report form at ufocenter.com.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, Peter, because yes, there is, the largest group of people on the planet currently are the baby boomers, who are all retiring now and getting up in years. Literally have probably got a lot of sighting reports through the decades that they might not have reported, but it's getting so easy to do that nowadays with computers and their phones, going to the National UFO Reporting Center and being able to just fill out the form and tell people what they saw. Remember, matter of fact, just for posterity's sake, for one thing, but obviously people can then use that data that they are sharing with us for other corroborations of other flaps and other sighting reports that might have been significant back in then, and people didn't really know about it unless you report it. So thank you for mentioning that.
I agree. It's much easier today to do it than it was back in the 50s. My predecessor, Robert J. Gribble, who founded the hotline in the National UFO Reporting Center, used to do all of his work by the United States Postal Service and by telephone. And I still do a lot of telephone work, but if it were not for the internet and computers, I wouldn't have been able to collect a fraction of the sighting reports that I have over the last 25 years, and not just collect that material, but make it available to large numbers of people. We get typically 25,000 people a day coming to our website, and that's
wow.
We wouldn't have been able to do that if it were not for the internet. So
that is a real service, Peter, that you are allowing the public to have for free. They don't have to have a subscription or anything like that to check your website and find out what's going on in their own backyard, basically. So thank you for all the decades of hard work that you've put into this. By the way, I think it'd be appropriate at this point if you could give maybe a mailing address or how people could actually donate a few dollars for your efforts on an ongoing basis. That would be something we should share with people.
Well, that's kind of you to offer, and I'll give out that address so people, if they'd like to send a small check our way, it would go directly towards providing telephone service and internet service. They can send it to the National UFO Reporting Center, or NUFORC, and our address is P.O. Box 700, P.O. Box 700. That's Davenport, Washington, Davenport, Washington. Zip code is 99122. And that Davenport is not a mistake. It's an ironic coincidence that it's the same name as my last name.
Yeah, I think that's real nice, Peter, that you moved to Davenport, Washington, so we can help with that, giving that address out a lot easier than that. That's for sure. That's wonderful. Yeah. So P.O. Box 700 in Davenport, Washington, Peter Davenport, and it's 99122. So yeah, send him a small check or money order to the National UFO Reporting Center, and that would be very helpful. All the decades that Peter has done all this good work for everyone and provided it for free for all of us. So, well, Peter, can you imagine? We've gone through a whole hour already.
Seemed like 10 or 15 minutes, Michael.
I know. This was awesome.
Do this again.
Well, we will.
We'll have to do this again sometime.
We will, and thank you for agreeing to do this for me, because whenever we have an opportunity, I would love to be able to have extended time with you like this on a semi-regular basis whenever we can. So I'm going to take a commercial break, and we're going to bid you farewell for the evening, my friend. Thank you for being with us, and we'll be right back on Spaced Out Sunday.
Thank you, Michael.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit Bumble. We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby. And tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date.
Hang on a second, I had to do my mute off there. Can you hear me all right?
Yes. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember.
Well, we are currently on a commercial,
purpleplates.com
and I don't think you can hear it in the background, can you?
Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla,
okay, because that's why I have the commercial playing. I just wanted to get you on the line, and I'm going to mute myself
and often
get back to you
thousands of customers.
In about
check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products.
Okay, just hang on, and we're going to do this thing. We're going to have fun.
At purpleplates.com.
All right.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Hey everyone, I'm John Edwards.
And I'm Stacey Edwards. Together we're taking over Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio, where we're going to bring our own experiences of the paranormal and talk to the best people we can find to help bring you answers to your strange tales.
We're here to entertain your need for weekend woo! So tune us in at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, where we can all get a little spooky together.
Spaced Out Saturday nights right here at spacedoutradio.com.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at mightymoosebeard.com today.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/spacedoutradio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you'd know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I'm bringing you the Woo every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going all out to bring you the strangest, oddest stories and subjects I could find for your entertainment. Why? Because when we hit peak Woo, I know I've done my job. So come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, and together, my friends, we own the night.
Welcome back, everyone, to hour number 2 of Spaced Out Sunday. I am your host, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer. Thanks for joining me. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates, WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, and UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans, Louisiana. And on the digital side, we are very proud to be on Revolution Radio. And don't forget, you can always check our archives for free at any time on youtube.com// Spaced Out Radio. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, of course, is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store, and catching up on the SOR Newswire, and so much more. And we are now going to kick in high gear here, ladies and gentlemen, with a unique subject that I think you are going to enjoy. William Shakespeare is the most celebrated and most read poet and dramatists in history. But his personal life and artistic life is a mystery. How did he obtain the extensive learning and experience displayed in his works? When were his plays written, and why were his works so often pirated by printers? Although publicly lauded during his lifetime, why was Shakespeare's death not even noticed by those in the literary world near the time that it had occurred? These are just a few problems that any Shakespeare professor cannot answer definitively, even after 2 centuries of scholarship. And my guest tonight is Katherine Chiljan. She has her BA in history from UCLA as an independent scholar who has studied this Shakespeare authorship question since 1985. She's debated the subject with English professors at the Smithsonian Institution, and Shakespeare Suppressed, her book, in 2011, earned Chiljan an award for distinguished scholarship at the Concordia University Awards in 2012. Chiljan edited letters and poems from Edward Earl of Oxford and contributed to Contested Year in 2016, and has written several articles in the Oxford publications as well. I am really excited to hear about some of this history that we don't know anything about from my special guest tonight, Katherine Chiljan. Are you there, Katherine?
I sure am. So good to be here.
Oh, thank you so much for taking this time out of your schedule. The fortunate thing that you and I have going tonight is that we're in the same time zone here.
Yes, West Coast.
By the way, I think you might have heard me talk a little bit earlier in the show with Peter Davenport from the National UFO Reporting Center. We were commiserating up here because literally it was 84 degrees in Seattle today. I don't know what it was like down in your area in San Francisco, but it's amazing.
It is. It was a little bit cooler, but yes, it's lovely weather.
Oh my. Well, anything in the 80s down there in San Francisco would be a lovely day, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, I was able to read some of the things on your bio, on your background of how learned you are in this whole subject of the literary works of William Shakespeare. But, of course, people would always want to know a little bit about you to begin with. What would you like us to know about your background before we get into the subject matter we're going to talk about tonight?
Well, I think I want your listeners to know that before I knew about this, came across this controversy, I was totally unbiased. I barely even had read any Shakespeare, but I saw a debate on television on Firing Line with William F. Buckley. And it was a Shakespeare professor from a prominent university, and he was debating Charlton Ogburn, who wrote this book called The Mysterious William Shakespeare, which is a wonderful book, and I really recommend it. And he was giving the case for Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford, as being the true Shakespeare, whereas the Shakespeare professor was defending the man born in Stratford-on-Avon. That's the place where, outside of London, most tourists go to visit to see the birthplace of the great Shakespeare.
Right.
So we're talking about two different entities here, And Charlton Ogburn, he just made point after point after point in favor of the Earl of Oxford as the true author, and also that the Stratford man has no case whatsoever. And the Shakespeare professor could not do the same for his own candidate. He could not defend the Stratford man. All he could really do was say, that Charlton Ogburn, was crazy, or, he was telling a good detective story, but, he just dissed him. That's it. That's all he could do. So I saw a great disconnect. So I want your listeners to know that I was totally neutral. I knew nothing about this, and I saw one man making perfect sense and the orthodox scholar making no sense.
Right. Yeah. So it's almost, every once in a while in various courses of study, you'll run across that kind of disconnect that you were just mentioning. The party line just doesn't make any sense for some reason, and somebody comes out of the left field with some real cogent arguments that kind of cause you to stand up and take notice.
Yes, and unfortunately for us, meaning the people who support the Earl of Oxford as the true author, it's been 100 years since he was discovered. I mean, that was really the greatest news, Shakespeare news, that was ever found. It happened in 1920 when J. Thomas Loney discovered the Earl of Oxford and came out with his book, Shakespeare Identified. But, you ask the Shakespeare professor about it, and they'll just, look at you with a strange look and dismiss it all. And that's what we're constantly going against. There's this tiny elite of academics who are the gatekeepers of Shakespeare. And they will not allow debate to happen on this topic, unfortunately.
Isn't that interesting? Why do you suppose there is this kind of party line? It's almost like science, doesn't want to get into the strange and the paranormal. But you would think that literary scientists, literary authors and researchers would want to know the details of the strange background of this most revered writer of all time, William Shakespeare.
Yes, it's tragic. They spend their whole lives, in some cases, studying and teaching the great Shakespeare works, but they do it on a very, very superficial level, actually, because they have no biography to go against. Whenever I would take whether it was an art history course or a literature course, when I was in university, the first thing that the professor would do is he would give a full biography of the person we're studying, what his life was like.
Right.
And then the various works would be parallel to the life. You would see indications where that's where he's discussing or what he's doing. But they can't do that for the great Shakespeare, who wrote over 40 plays and 150 sonnets and 2 long poems. And they would tell you, oh, well, he didn't reflect his life at all in any of the works. And, it's tragic. And the reason why they won't do it, I don't know, maybe it's, a couple 100 years of a myth that just solidified and they just don't want to question it.
Yeah.
Or maybe they have some vested interest in it. Like, for example, the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust, which is really the bastion of Shakespeare orthodoxy. They were offered by one of our organizations a £40,000 quote-unquote donation if they would appear in a trial to defend their candidate, the man born in Stratford-on-Avon.
Oh.
And as far as I know, it's been over 4 years, and they have not accepted this, and yet they are a registered charity. So it's odd. If they were so confident about the Stratford man being the great author, it seemed to me it would be a piece of cake for them to accept the challenge.
Oh, can you imagine Shakespeare on trial? Oh, that would be awesome. Wouldn't that be fun to watch that? And it sounds like the Stratford-on-Avon folks are going to lose big time in that regard, and they don't want to get anywhere near it.
Perhaps that's the reason. I don't know. It still baffles me to this day. Why is there such pushback against this concept?
Yeah. Well, my gosh, Katherine, you're talking a body of work that is just amazing. I mean, 40 plays, and these are just not just any plays. These are like the classics that somebody has written, and we need to get down to the bottom line on who has done that. 150 sonnets, long poems himself, and all that kind of stuff. Should we start off with explaining who the Stratford-upon-Avon person was, or should we go the other way and talk about the Earl of Oxford first?
Well, I think it's important to talk first about the incumbent, the person that we all, orthodoxy attributes wrote the works of. We call him the Stratford man. It turns out, he was a real human being, and he was born in Stratford in 1564, and he died in 1616. You're a lawyer, you know about evidence.
Right.
If you look at the lifetime evidence of the Stratford man, absolutely nothing connects him to education or writing.
Oh my.
Yes. So, I mean, you have his christening records, you have his children's christening records, you have his marriage records, you have various lawsuits. In fact, the Stratford man, he was deposed for someone else's lawsuit. And we have that it survives.
Oh, that wouldn't that be interesting to see a transcript of someone who is supposedly William Shakespeare? Is it written down? Could we actually see what he was saying and the way he's...
Yes, they asked him a bunch of questions and he replied to them. But the funny thing is that he was only identified as a gentleman. He was not identified as a writer, a dramatist, an actor, a theater share. Nothing at all. He was just William Shakespeare of Stratford, gentleman. That's it. And yet there were other people who were deposed who were like a musician for one of the kings, the king. And he was called the king's musician,
Yeah.
So, people were identified by their professions. And, what the Orthodox professor wants to tell you was that the Stratford man's profession was acting and writing, and yet there is absolutely no evidence, no payment to him as a writer, and no evidence he went to school.
Yeah, no, they just described him as a country gentleman. Is that what you're uncovering, huh?
In his deposition, yes.
Yeah.
That's that's the only thing he described himself as. So,
Isn't that interesting?
So the point is, all the records we have for him while he was alive during his lifetime have nothing to do with writing or education. There are, however, and I don't want to, dismiss it, there are some indications that he was involved in the theater.
Oh.
We have him named as a theater shareholder for the Globe Theater. I'm sure many of your listeners have heard of that.
Sure.
And then he was also a theater shareholder for another theater called the Blackfriars Theater. So those are facts. I don't dispute him. And he was listed as an actor in the King's Men Acting Company, and that was in 1603.
Oh.
So, that's definitely a theater connection. And he was one of 3 people who was allowed to receive a payment for a theater performance. That's it. Those are the nuggets. And
very
none
interesting.
of those indicate we're talking about a writer here.
Yeah. Now you mentioned, this was my lawyer mind kicking in. You mentioned he was one of 3 people that were paid as an actor during that period of time. Why was that significant? He was only one of 3 people paid as an actor. What does that mean?
Well, no, he was one of 3 people who were allowed to receive a payment from the Queen's minister for a performance that was performed before her.
Okay, that makes sense now.
They were paid about £20 or something like that. That was quite a lot of money. So obviously the production was, before the Queen, was fairly lavish. So theoretically, this acting company had to put out the money first, and then a few months later they would get their payment for it. It's my belief, based on the evidence, that the Stratford man was actually a financier of this acting company, that he had nothing to do with the acting at all. He was just funding it. He was, we have several records of him as a moneylender.
Okay.
And his father was also a moneylender. So it fits perfectly, especially when you don't have any indication of education or writing during his lifetime.
Yeah, and that would make sense as well. Then when he passed away as a moneylender, people would basically not say a whole lot of things about him, since they probably owed him money. Yes. At that point. Oh my! It's like the Scrooge, character. Oh my.
But also, I would say when he died, no one said anything because they did not associate him with the great author, the writer of Hamlet.
Yeah.
And he is an Adonis. He was a totally different person. So what it turns out being is there were 2 William Shakespeares who were involved in the theater at this time. One was a Stratford man, right? He was involved in the theater. And he was born with the name William Shakespeare. Actually, it was phonetically, it was spoken a different way. But anyway, you have him, and then you have a mysterious person using the name William Shakespeare as a pen name. It was a pen name.
Really?
And as we mentioned earlier, it was the pen name of the Earl of Oxford. So.
Oh, isn't that fascinating? So the Earl of Oxford and William Shakespeare, the financier, or whatever, they were living at the same time, basically, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, isn't that strange that potentially the most famous playwright of all time would take a pen name of someone who was involved in the theater? And do you suppose that these 2 gentlemen would have known each other at that time?
In my opinion, the Earl of Oxford, I think he knew the Stratford man. I don't know if they were acquainted, but I think he knew who he was. I don't believe the Earl of Oxford specifically used him as a front. Some people in our movement think that. I don't. I think that he chose the name William Shakespeare much earlier probably in 1570 when he was in a jousting tournament. A joust involves a long spear.
Yeah.
And you try and, attack a person on a horse with another long spear, right?
Oh.
And anyway, he was the champion of this tournament. So he was a spear shaker, a champion spear shaker. And I think that is really where it came from. In fact, if you look at the early printed editions of the Shakespeare plays, you will see a hyphen, not in all cases, but about half of the cases, you will see a hyphen between shake and spear.
Oh.
Indicating a made-up name.
Yes.
Spear shaking.
Exactly. And, that is the first I have even heard of that analogy. The idea that William Shakespeare was not only a pen name, but, like a made-up pen name of, potentially someone who is a jouster as well. Because I remember Mark Twain, coming up with his pen name, having something to do with the riverboat, marking the depth of the water, that kind of thing. It's fascinating to me that these names that we just take for granted literally were created at one point. It sounds like. Yes.
And the more you get into it, the more fascinating it gets. And so many people of that time period used different names. It was not unusual to have a pen name.
Yes, I have heard that. Many of the, for instance, when you were doing a periodical, back in those days, and you were printing on a printing press kind of a thing. Literally, some of those writers would take up multiple names just to have different articles in the same edition that they're going to pass out, just because it looks like it's, much more of an ongoing concern if you got more writers than just 2 or 3 guys putting out, a local newspaper. So I've heard of that idea of pen names being very popular back in those days. We're going to get into the details of that and how that relates to the 7th Earl of Oxford in just a few moments. We have to take a short break here, Catherine, at the bottom of the hour. We are probably going to be gone for about 6 minutes, so you've got plenty of time to do what you need to do if you'd like to get something to drink or eat in the interim. And we're going to be back at Spaced Out Sunday in just a few moments. Hang on with us.
Cold drinks, great food, and the best music in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is the place to be, open until 2 a.m. nightly. Everything on the menu starts at just $6.95. Who serves food that cheap anymore? At the Moose, you'll never know who you'll run into. Rock stars, actors, athletes. It's the place everyone wants to be. So join us at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for something new to push your limits? Look Beyond the Spectrum, a new docu-series featuring some of the best researchers in the world when it comes to everything from UFOs, government cover-ups, and strange humanoids. Truth seekers Stephen Bassett, Jeff Meldrum, Jack Kasher, and Stanton Friedman, among others, all chip in to bring their knowledge to you. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon as well as Tubi TV. Tell us what you think on our Amazon page.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. For more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Need that weekend supernatural fix? Look no further than Spaced Out Saturday right here at spacedoutradio.com. I'm Stacey Edwards.
And I'm John Edwards. Each Saturday night, Stacey and I are going to bring you the best in paranormal, cryptids, UFOs, you name it, and we're going there.
It's all about the experience and to share the knowledge with all of you.
So tune us in every Saturday night on Spaced Out Saturdays, starting at 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, Space Travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do? What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at kajans.com.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to Spaced Out Sunday. This is Michael W. Hall, your paranormal lawyer here, and I am with a fascinating guest tonight, Katherine Chiljan. And Katherine, am I pronouncing your last name correctly? I want to make sure I do that.
Perfectly.
Okay, very, very good. I'm a stickler for that myself usually, so it's good that I'm on the right track there. This is really amazing idea that you literally have taken this subject so seriously and done the research that you were able to go into the den of wolves and debate this factor with the what is it, the where was that place that you the Smithsonian?
The Smithsonian, yes.
Tell me about that. That must have been a crazy idea.
Yeah, that was in 2003. It was a while ago, and it was two panels. One panel for the Earl of Oxford, in his case, as being the true Shakespeare, and the other panel were Orthodox Shakespeare scholars. I think one or two were professors, and two were professors out of the three. And there was over 100 people there. It had a good turnout, and but in the end, the audience always goes with the Orthodox. So, but it was a good opportunity to get our message out there. Also, keep in mind, there's been several Supreme Court justices who are into this, who have heard about the controversy, and several of them are doubters of the traditional Shakespeare.
Well, that's quite a hefty group of folks to have on your side if you've got some Supreme Court justices that are even into this field. That's for sure.
Yes, and you had mentioned Mark Twain. Mark Twain wrote a whole book about it, Against the Stratford Man.
Oh, really?
He just couldn't see how the great author could know so many legal terms and not have gone to law school. So that really got him into it. Oh. Yeah, he wrote in 1909, he wrote, Is Shakespeare Dead?
Oh, interesting.
It's a wonderful book. You should really read it. It's not too long either.
Now, let me ask you this. Mark Twain had quite a wit. Was he using his humor at all in this book, or was it straightforward research?
No, it was humor.
Yeah.
It was humor.
I'll bet.
And he was complaining how, we're talking 100 years ago. Even then, the Shakespeare orthodoxy were resorting to name calling over this controversy, even with Mark Twain.
One of Mark Twain's famous quotes that I just love, and I use it myself to this day, is that he was talking with someone who was interviewing him and stuff, and he says, it's very hard to argue with someone who buys their ink by the train loads. When he was talking about someone debating him who was potentially a publisher of a newspaper themselves, and they could print as much as they wanted about you, and you had to just write individually your responses. But I can imagine that would be quite a controversial thing for Mark Twain to have written back then, do you think?
Oh, yes. It is as much as it would be today, And,
yeah.
And actually, the idea that he was really into this doesn't get a lot of play with, the historians of Mark Twain. You don't see a lot of it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I didn't know that myself. That's fascinating. Now, you were mentioning that the Earl of Oxford was potentially a lawyer, went to law school, maybe?
Well, yeah, if we want to start talking about Oxford, let's just start from the beginning, that when he was very young, he had special tutors. Of course, he was born into great wealth, and, he had everything at his disposal. Okay. And he had private tutors, and they were like top scholars in England. One of them was Thomas Smith, well known during the period. And when he was 8 years old, he attended Cambridge University.
Oh my!
It's true that often students were a little bit younger, but 8 was very young back then. So that's an indication that he, was something of a prodigy. And after that, he went to Oxford University when he was 12, and he graduated with a master's. And after that, when he was 16 years old, he went to Gray's Inn, which was like a law school. They call them the Inns of Court. and one of the Inns of Court was called Gray's Inn, and he was registered. And many scholars see law all over the plays and sonnets, and specific type of knowledge that you just normally wouldn't know. In fact, in the 19th century, a legal scholar, Lord Campbell, he wrote a book about it, how prevalent the legal terms were and how they were used correctly.
Yeah. Wow.
And the Earl of Oxford was extremely well educated. He was interested in literature. Beyond being a poet in his own right in his day, he was also known as a playwright. And he also sponsored an acting company. He held a lease on a theater. He patronized people in literature. There's about 27 or 28 books were dedicated to him during his lifetime. I mean, he was a deep intellectual who was really into the theater, really into poetry. The unfortunate thing for him, however, is that if you were of the nobility, being involved in such activities as writing plays and poetry was considered frivolous. And during his lifetime, it was not something he really wanted the general public to know about. So he didn't advertise this. And beyond not advertising this, some of his works had a pen name on it, which was William Shakespeare. So this is totally in keeping of what would be expected of someone of his high degree. Another reason, too, would be that in some of the plays, he was, giving a little kneeling or lampooning
yes.
of some people who he knew in his life, who just so happened to be very powerful people. Like, for example, in Hamlet, the character Polonius, historians accept pretty much that Polonius was a caricature of William Cecil, the Lord Burleigh. Lord Burleigh was the Queen Elizabeth's top minister. In fact, some historians will say he really ran England. He was extremely powerful. Well, he was the father-in-law of the Earl of Oxford. The Earl of Oxford married his daughter. But anyway, this portrayal of Polonius was not that flattering. So, of course, he would not want it to be generally known, to the non-nobility that this is who this man really represents.
Yeah.
And also, the Cecil family would not want it to be known either. And I think that what came into play after the Earl of Oxford died, I think that they had something to do with it, possibly. So, keeping this covered.
Yeah. So in other words, they would have his relatives, his sons and daughters or whatever, his progeny would have motivation as well to not come out of the closet and explain the fact that their father maybe was this famous playwright, given the fact that he could have been making fun of his own father-in-law and in-laws in some of his plays, it sounds like.
Yes. And I think, it's unfortunate. The Earl of Oxford, I think during his lifetime, yes, he kept it quiet. He didn't advertise the fact that he was the great author, but he should have gotten credit after he died. And that's, to me, is the great pity and tragedy.
Yes.
If you read some of his sonnets, he complained that my name be buried where my body lives and live no more.
Yes.
So he apparently knew that he would not get credit, but that didn't have to be the case. There were other nobility or highly ranked people who wrote plays and poetry. They didn't publish in their lifetime, okay? But thereafter, it was perfectly acceptable for them to get credit and have their works be published. And this courtesy was not given to the Earl of Oxford, and I believe it was political.
Oh, very interesting. Political because he was too close to the characters he was writing about, do you suppose?
I think that also. And also I think the Shakespeare's sonnets, which were over 150 poems, 14-line poems, which really they're almost all written in the first person and were very intimate. He was talking about himself. I mean, you want to know the Earl of Oxford, you want to know the great author Shakespeare, read the sonnets, because he's talking about himself and he's talking about the people he loved. And one of the people he describes was a beautiful young man. And today we refer to him as the fair youth. And about 75% of the sonnets are about the fair youth or addressed to him. And Shakespeare describes him in sort of princely terms, royal terms.
Oh.
And in several of the sonnets. It could be that he was making an allusion that this young man was actually the Queen's child. So I think that, that possibility could have raised a red flag.
Oh,
and,
yes.
That the powers that be did not want this to be generally known.
Yes.
So that's a possibility. I can't say 100% for sure. But as we mentioned with William Cecil, the most powerful man in England, he was being satirized here and there. Also his son, Robert Cecil. Many people of this Elizabethan era and the era that followed, the Jacobean era, associated the villain, Richard III, which was a Shakespeare play, they associated him with Robert Cecil. So that was another demerit against the true author,
Oh, my.
You have the most powerful people in England being associated with villains or, sort of bumbling people. That's not good.
Oh, that's fascinating stuff. The intrigue that was involved then is so subtle to us. Back then it would have been a huge faux pas to do something like that, and you would definitely need to hide that thing. This reminds me of Catherine of an interesting, kind of a strange correlation in that regard. Is that I have into the UFO field myself. They call me the paranormal lawyer out here. I have actually come up with the idea of a whistleblower trust that I call a disclosure trust for people who cannot or just will not disclose some truths, about disclosure or artifacts or documents that they have. They don't necessarily want to go to their deathbed with them, but they don't want to do it during their lifetime. So I've come up with the idea of a trust like that. You would wonder if a person like the Earl of Oxford would have thought of something like that, maybe not a dead man's trigger, but something like that to resurrect his name later on. Were there any clues that he might have left that would tie him to these things, maybe generations down the road where it wouldn't matter so much?
Well, I think that he put a lot of himself in the sonnets, as we mentioned, and also the plays.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Hamlet is really his biography. So it comes down to this. Either the great author knew the Earl of Oxford, because that Hamlet is his life story, or he was the Earl of Oxford. That's what it really comes down to. And he may have put more things into the works to make it even more obvious. That's the closest I can come. I'm hoping for the day that a manuscript gets unearthed somewhere, and it will be in the handwriting of the Earl of Oxford. I don't know if I mentioned, but there is not one page of manuscript that has survived of all the Shakespeare plays. Not one page.
Oh my! Isn't that unique?
It's totally unique, and not even one letter
Yeah.
In the supposedly by William Shakespeare. Well, that can be explained because there was no William Shakespeare. It was a pen name, right? The Earl of Oxford, however, left many letters, but not the play manuscripts.
Yes.
We do not have the play manuscripts. And that was unusual. There are here and there are bits and pieces of play manuscripts that have survived. Like, for example, Ben Jonson was a well-known playwright of the period, and we have one whole manuscript of an entire work. They call it a masque, which is a form of a play.
Uh-huh.
That has survived in his handwriting, but nothing of Shakespeare. And he had such prodigious output.
Right.
It's just unfathomable. My hope is that the works were all put together in one place, and maybe one day they'll be unearthed.
Oh, wouldn't that be the holy grail of literature? Oh, my.
It would be. Because I believe that the plays that were printed in these early days in the 1500s and 1600s, they were actually very corrupt. They were in very bad condition, unlike other plays. I mean, they weren't all perfect, but many of them were in bad condition of the Shakespeare works. And I think it is because they were pirated. Because the great author, not only did he not want people to know he was writing, but he didn't want them to publish his writing. That also was considered a déclassé thing for a man of his high rank.
Oh.
So I don't think he ever gave the originals to these printers who printed some of the plays. And
so that's an interesting idea.
So
that
it means that we've never really read the real Shakespeare plays.
Exactly. That's what I was just going to get at. I mean, that is a revelation right there. The fact that the quality and the depth that we know of William Shakespeare is maybe not even the tip of the iceberg of what there really is there.
Oh, and your listeners, they probably have no idea. There are controversies as to what a certain line would meant in Shakespeare because we don't have the exact line.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't make sense. The reason they don't make sense is because probably it was someone sitting in the audience taking down stenography and they got things wrong or they heard things wrong. And that's what we were left with. So what we are reading today are 200 years of editing. That's the product you're seeing today.
Yes.
You're not seeing what was actually printed.
Oh my, Catherine, this brings to my mind, the folks that go to movie theaters nowadays and surreptitiously record the film on their iPhones, from the audience.
Yes.
And then they, put it up on the internet later on. I can imagine some scribes in the audience there taking shorthand and not trying to let people know that they were doing this. Or was this kind of like a profession that people would go to plays and do this? Do you think it was surreptitiously or doing this or not?
Yes.
Okay.
And they would take this text. Sometimes they would even bribe actors to read their lines to them.
Oh.
And they would piece it together. And this was given to the printers because the plays were so popular.
Yeah.
There was this high demand for the printed versions. And they would, give it to the printer and the printer would publish it. And the problem was, the great author was in a catch-22 situation. If he tried to call them out on them or sue them,
yes,
he would reveal who he was.
Yes.
So it kind of, in one way, kept him silent. But there is also, during this period, when plays were printed or when any book was printed, you needed to license it with the stationers. They called them the Company of Stationers. And in several cases, Shakespeare plays were stopped. And it's on record. So it could be the great author was actually trying to stop publication.
Oh, I see. So stopped by way of being stopped being printed at that point. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Wow.
Sometimes they would be in the process of printing.
Yeah.
And then the authorities would come in and say, you can't print this, in essence.
Yeah.
So,
and of course,
there's many of those instances on case involving Shakespeare. In fact, one of the plays, I forget which one it was, perhaps Merchant of Venice, one of them, there was a notation at the stationer's company that it cannot be printed without further permission.
Ah.
Yes. So we have a few of those instances.
Now, maybe you can help me with the logistics of being an actor back in that period of time. Would these people literally have some kind of a script that they would memorize their lines from, or how would that actually work?
Yes, I believe that each actor had his own role. I don't think that he had an entire play with him. He just had his section.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I don't know.
That would be fascinating to even find printed versions of, those actors' notes as well. Fascinating.
Yes.
To compare them with, what we know as the pirated versions of the plays at this time.
Yes. It's just incredible. If the Orthodox professor would just accept that there's a problem here, and we can start looking in the right direction, and maybe we can find these original manuscripts.
Yeah. Oh, that would be amazing. You would think that if there was the powers that be back in those days, or the Earl of Oxford had connections with them to be able to shut down printing presses like that, doing pirated versions of the printed version of the play, that they would have the ability to maybe put these things in a safe spot one time, like you were mentioning. Maybe they are still to be discovered.
Yes, that's, of course, my great hope.
Yeah. Oh, this is fascinating stuff. We're at the top of the second hour already here, Katherine. We are just rolling along so quickly. I'm just bubbling over with questions to ask you, and I appreciate your scholarship in this regard, because I had no idea that there was this major controversy brewing on such a historic figure as William of Shakespeare, or the Earl of Oxford. Oh my, this is fascinating stuff. Well, we are going to take a break again, probably at the top of the hour, for another 6 minutes here while we go to commercial. But, I wanted to remind you, if you could do me a favor and mute your microphone during the commercial break here, then that will help me on this end getting any background noise, and I'm going to mute myself as well. So we will be right back, folks, with more of Katherine Chiljan and William Shakespeare Suppressed. How about that? Just a moment.
Hey, space travelers. This is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent, and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I'm bringing you the Woo every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going all out to bring you the strangest, oddest stories and subjects I could find for your entertainment. Why? Because when we hit peak Woo, I know I've done my job. So come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, and together, my friends, we own the night.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit Bumble. We're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby and tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
Hello, Space Travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month and follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother is Watching.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey everyone, I'm John Edwards.
And I'm Stacey Edwards. Together we're taking over Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio, where we're going to bring our own experiences of the paranormal and talk to the best people we can find to help bring you answers to your strange tales.
We're here to entertain your need for weekend woo! So tune us in at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, where we can all get a little spooky together.
Spaced Out Saturday nights right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Sunday. I am your host, Michael W. Hall. Thanks for being with us tonight. We welcome everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates, WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, and UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And on the digital side, we are also on Revolution Radio. Don't forget, you can always check out our archives on youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Do us all a favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store, and catching up on the SOR Newswire, and so much more. And boy, we have gotten through an amazing hour with my special guest, Katherine Chiljan. I always I did that fine for the first whole hour, and now I'm messing up, but it's Chiljan. And we were talking about the idea that William Shakespeare might be a different person than we think he was, and actually was a pen name for someone else. Thank you for being with me tonight, Katherine.
Oh, my pleasure to get the full information out.
Yeah. This is, I had, I think somewhere in the recesses of my mind, had the conspiracy theory that I heard about that Francis Bacon was involved in this kind of a thing as a pen name as well. Can you tell us how that rumor was started as well?
Yes. The quote-unquote anti-Stratfordian movement started in the 1850s, and the first book written about it was by a lady named Delia Bacon, and she thought that it was a group theory, several people writing Shakespeare, but the prominent one being Sir Francis Bacon. Now, and thereafter, many books were written supporting Sir Francis Bacon, and it was not unjustified. He was a greatly educated person, but he was primarily involved in the sciences and philosophy, and he wrote a huge body of works in that regard. And keep in mind that Shakespeare also wrote a huge body of works. It just doesn't seem quite fathomable that both works could have been written by one man.
Right.
But they did, the Baconians really did away with the case for the Stratford man. They laid out the entire argument. And it became an interesting controversy in the late 1800s, early 1900s, like we mentioned with Mark Twain. And then in just before 1920, J. Thomas Loney, the founder of our movement, the Oxfordian movement, he discovered the Earl of Oxford, and he published his book, Shakespeare Identified, in 1920. And so, yes, people still bring up Bacon, maybe because the name is so easy to remember. But really, Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford, he really has been the main candidate since 1920.
Wow. I didn't realize that that was not, well, I guess it was actually still quite maybe 100 years ago that Francis Bacon theory was put forth, but I didn't realize it was that far after the whole idea of the Earl of Oxford. And the Earl of Oxford idea was well before Francis Bacon, then, it sounds like.
No, it was after. Bacon was first.
Oh, I see.
50s, and the Earl of Oxford from 1920 on. I mean, there are still people who believe in Francis Bacon was the author today. There's nothing wrong with that. I think they're wrong.
Yeah.
But the point is people who look into the case for the Stratford man, like they do and we do, see a tremendous problem that needs solving. Once you put the Stratford man to the side You just have to look at the works and see who fits the description of the great author, what the great author knew. You know, we're talking about a man who knew the modern languages, the ancient languages, the Bible, medicine, law. We're talking about the law, rhetoric, music, astronomy, details of Italy. Now, that's a great one. In Romeo and Juliet, just in the opening lines, there is a description of the Western Wall in the city of Verona in Italy, that there are sycamore trees there. Now, this is really just a very, very minor detail. It was not a tourist destination to go see the sycamore trees in the Western Wall. It was just a detail that the author knew about.
Right.
And it's so fine a detail and so obscure that you had to have been there to know that, to even make note of it, you know, in the play.
Yes.
So one of our researchers, he has since passed away, but his name is Richard Rowe. He wrote a book called The Shakespeare Guide to Italy, and he went to Verona, to the Western Wall, to see if really there were sycamore trees there, and sure enough, there still are.
Oh my!
And you know, that's just one instance. He goes through several of the plays for, you know, kind of obscure things mentioned about Italy, place names and things that he finds to be true, that really existed, and which again argues the great author went to Italy. And if you look at the biography of the Earl of Oxford, he spent a year in Italy. He loved Italy.
Oh.
And he stationed himself in Venice, and he toured through several different Italian cities. So he did the Grand Tour. He also went to France, and he went to Germany. When he went to Germany, he sought out one of the German intellectuals. His name was Sturmius. So, I mean, he was not only well-traveled, but he was traveling to get information. And we believe that when he came back, he brought the Renaissance to England. England was a little bit behind in that sense, as far as enlightenment in the arts and translations and literature. And I think that he brought back this learning to England and incorporated it into his works. This is another reason why it's so important for us to know who the real man was.
Yes.
It certainly has a consequence on the dating of the plays as well.
Well, you know, and that would point to the, you know, there's a theory in the law, collateral evidence, that literally the travels of an individual and then the consequences of those travels back into England with the Renaissance burgeoning again about that same time, that's collateral evidence right there of something unique and kind of ties it to the Earl of Oxford as well.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great point. I'll have to remember that word.
Well, you know, that's basically what you try to prove your case. You know, if you can't find direct evidence, you use collateral evidence, you know, to point out that there's some really interesting synchronicities going on at the same time. So that's fascinating. Now, one question I always wondered was, at the time that this famous Shakespeare was writing these amazing plays, did he have any competitors? Were there other people that were considered to be as prolific or as important as this one person was at that point? Or was Shakespeare just the superstar that dominated the field at the time?
In my opinion, it's the latter. He was the superstar. He was actually, the plays were not written for the general public. They were written for the entertainment of Queen Elizabeth I and her court. She loved plays and masks and things like that. And he was entertaining her. And I'm just going to give you one example. We have records of the various plays that the Queen saw. Many of them are lost. We only know them by their title. One of the titles of the play that the Queen saw was called The History of Error. Error, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, that was in 1577. The Earl of Oxford was 27 at that time. And he was known to have participated in acting before the Queen at that time. But anyway, that title could very well have been what later became titled The Comedy of Errors. The History of Errors and The Comedy of Errors.
Yeah.
Now, if this History of Errors was listed 20 years later, then the professor would say, "Oh yes, this is the same play. History of Error is the same as Comedy of Errors." But because it was written in 1577, when the Stratford man was 13 years old, it could not possibly have been Shakespeare's Comedy of Errors, right?
Oh.
Because they're working with the wrong model.
Yes. Oh, that's fascinating. Definitely.
Earl of Oxford, yeah, he was like 15 years older than the Stratford man. So the point is, he was writing decades earlier than what the professor today will tell you.
I see.
Yes.
Yeah. They don't want to bring that timeline into people's knowledge, or else it's going to kill their arguments for sure.
Yes, and there are other plays too that are descriptive of some of the Shakespeare plays, but they have different titles. And this is, again, here you have a clear example of when a Shakespeare play was written, and it totally discounts the Stratford man.
Yes.
So.
Oh, that's fascinating. Good point. Thank you for bringing that out. And I really like the point that you mentioned, that the fact that these plays themselves were not necessarily written for the common person to come and watch a play at the Globe Theater. This was something that was done at a high level of entertainment for the Queen and the court, it sounds like.
Yes, I mean, and if you read a Shakespeare play, look how dense the references are to various historical things, mythology, great culture. A highly cultured individual wrote these works.
Right, and you wouldn't do that to the man on the street at that point. They would not even relate to the subject matter, right?
There you go. When you have a huge amount, the common person, everyday Joe, really was not educated, so he would not have caught these references. This was really entertainment for the higher classes, the educated classes, who would catch these allusions, and it would be relevant.
Yes.
As well as, in some cases, being personifications of Queen Elizabeth, and we mentioned Lord Burleigh. Highly placed people were inside these plays too. It was only decades later that I believe they came on the public theater, the public stage.
Well, and Katherine, gosh, that even points to me that the fact that these things were then later printed, for the general public or pamphleteers to put in their publications, don't you think they must have even dumbed them down at that point, for the public consumption?
I don't think, not necessarily. I think that they probably didn't understand them themselves, and that's why they came out, with so many errors.
Right. I see. Yeah, because if you did a literary analysis of the plays now, I would imagine someone would have, probably someone has, come up with those mistakes, those strange alliterations that don't make sense in the plays currently? Is that what's happened as well?
Well, yeah, it's been going on for many, many years, hundreds of years, of what a certain line means, or what it really should mean, and is this a real word? Did he invent the word, or did they spell the word wrong?
Yeah, it's like the exegesis that's done to the Bible and the scriptures in the Old Testament. People are always trying to explain that's not really what it meant. It was done in a different language or whatever. Oh, that's fascinating stuff. That people would use those written words that we have now and try to explain a little bit more about the author and what he was actually trying to say at the time, given the fact that this was a unique audience that he was writing for.
Yes, and you had mentioned, too, did he have any rivals? Well, a prominent court playwright was a man named John Lilly. Well, he was the Earl of Oxford's secretary.
Oh, my.
So you have, a great connection. And, funny, how is it that we have letters of John Lilly written to Queen Elizabeth I, but we don't have any letters of, written to or from Shakespeare to Elizabeth? How come we don't have anything there? How is that possible?
Yes, right.
Especially since it's on record that the Queen saw at least 3 Shakespeare plays. Why was there no notice by Queen Elizabeth of the great author Shakespeare? So again, it points out that this is really someone's pen name. She really did know the real author, but he was not under the name of William Shakespeare.
And that's a fascinating idea. That in reality she probably would be tickled to see some of these plays, knowing that they're a little biographical and knowing the author potentially. But do you think she was in on the cover-up as well, obviously, at that point?
I don't think so. She died a year before the Earl of Oxford. So
okay.
I don't think she directly was involved. I think that this whole cover-up happened after both Oxford died and the Stratford man.
Oh, I see.
And if you like, we can talk about, how the hoax really came about.
Yeah. I mean, let's get down to the nitty-gritty here. We've only got a little over half an hour left, so let's get down to the good stuff. All right. We can start it now. We've got plenty of time for about 4 more minutes before we get a break. But if you'd like to give us a little teaser before the break, that'd be wonderful.
Sure. Well, how did the Stratford man, who was only minorly involved with the theater, how did he become associated with the great author? And the answer is a book that was published in 1623. It's a large book with big pages. Almost 1,000 pages, and it had a collection of the Shakespeare plays, 36 Shakespeare plays. And it's in the opening pages of this book that it was contrived to make it appear that the Stratford man was the great author, William Shakespeare.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Why?
And this book was printed 19 years after the Earl of Oxford died and 7 years after the Stratford man died.
Okay. And is there a connection there with the publisher of this book, this great tome, and the cover-up as well? Do we know who published this book?
That's an excellent question. Yes. It turns out that the book was dedicated to the two men who were earls, also earls, the Earl of Pembroke and the Earl of Montgomery. They were brothers.
Oh.
And this work was dedicated to them. And it turns out that the Earl of Montgomery was the son-in-law of the Earl of Oxford.
Oh.
There you have a direct connection. to the Earl of Oxford.
Yeah.
So his family, Oxford's family, was involved in the cover-up.
Right. They had a vested interest, of course, in keeping that a secret, even after his death. Oh, that is just fascinating. This is like one of those whodunit mysteries where everybody's locked in the same room in a big mansion somewhere. You know, I could see this. Someone has got to take up your book at one point and make a film about this. This is a fascinating story.
It is. It's the greatest story in literature, really, and literary history.
And it's the greatest story never told, it sounds like.
Yes. Well, actually, there was a film in 2011 when my book was published. It would happen to be the same year. It was done by Roland Emmerich, and it was called Anonymous. And it actually depicted the Earl of Oxford as the great author and the Stratford man as a separate person. So that was very interesting.
Oh, my. I'll bet you were just going crazy about that time seeing that film.
We were all happy that it made it to the big time. But the film itself was not a hit. So it didn't last very long. And also there were a few things in it that were not, I didn't quite agree with, or, poetic license was taken, of course.
Yeah.
But we were all thrilled that, we finally had one film done. But this is a topic that really deserves like a 40 or 50 part series like they do in England, or in the Korean dramas are great on that. So we need something along those lines to really get into this, because the Earl of Oxford had a fascinating life.
Oh, yeah. It sounds like the idea that one person could have all the knowledge that accumulates in these plays to begin with. That is just a story in itself, that someone would have this versatility, of mind in that regard, to be able to write all that at once. And are you basically discounting the idea at this point that there be more than one author? Obviously, you're kind of in the camp that everything was done by the Earl of Oxford, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that he started very early, maybe in his early teens.
Yeah.
And he probably, kept working on various plays, making them, expanding upon them, etc. I think really one of the earliest was Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, yeah.
And interestingly, when the Earl of Oxford was 12 years old, a poem about Romeo and Juliet came out. And the writer of this poem said that the poem was inspired by a drama that he had recently seen.
Oh.
And, that was when the Earl of Oxford was 12 years old.
Right.
So, that has great possibilities.
It's like a Mozart child prodigy actually getting something published, or at least, on the boards, they say, as a young child, being able to come up with dialogue, with those kinds of things as a young person. That's just fascinating. We got to take our last break here, Catherine. This is just going so smoothly and fast. Thank you so much. We will be right back in about 6 more minutes for the final half hour of Spaced Out Sunday. Please stay with us.
Need that weekend supernatural fix? Look no further than Spaced Out Saturday right here at spacedoutradio.com. I'm Stacey Edwards.
And I'm John Edwards. Each Saturday night, Stacey and I are going to bring you the best in paranormal, cryptids, UFOs, you name it, and we're going there.
It's all about the experience and to share the knowledge with all of you.
So tune us in every Saturday night on Spaced Out Saturdays, starting at 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
I'm feeling a little spicy tonight. What to do?
Why not get Bumblefuck?
4 million Scoville units of pure hard rock. Bumblefoot hot sauces come in 3 flavors. The burning Bumble. Tone it down a bit with Bumblicious and throw the sauce on everything.
Spice it up. Bumble me, baby. Bumblefoot hot sauce. Get it today at Kajans.com.
Are you looking for great advertising value for your company? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. We have a multitude of places to get your name out there, including commercial ads during the show, special promotions, and banners on our website. Our audience is proven to support the companies that support our show. We can make your budget work for you. So for more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Are you addicted to the woo? Good. Me too. This is Dave Scott, and you can woo it up with me every Monday through Friday, starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, for 3 hours of great entertainment in the subjects you love. UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, intuition. Yes, we hit it all 5 days a week. Look for us at spacedoutradio.com, where together, my friends, we own the night.
At spacedoutradio.com, we are keeping you up to date on all the news with the SOR Newswire. Captain Shirk leads the team that is bringing you the news of the day and exclusive stories on everything paranormal and supernatural. It's free to read, it's updated daily, and it's right there for you. The SOR Newswire is a one-stop shop for the news of the day. Check it out at spacedoutradio.com today.
Hello everyone, this is Ryan Stacy from the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We're glad to team up with Spaced Out Radio to help investigate your experiences on the SOR Sightlines Report. Together, we'll investigate the strange sightings and occurrences you've had. We're looking for answers just like you. So fill out a Sightlines Report on the Spaced Out Radio website and let's figure out what's going on together.
Hey Spaced Out Radio fans, it's John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from vans to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Well, we are back for the final half hour of Spaced Out Sunday. Thank you for joining me tonight and my special guest, Katherine Chiljan. Oh my, this has just been enlightening for me to figure out that all the things that I had been raised, in some of those old English classes that I used to take in high school even, I had no clue about the idea that William Shakespeare was a pen name for someone else. And in this case, we're talking about the Earl of Oxford, the 17th Earl of Oxford, and my special guest, Katherine Chiljan. Katherine, thank you so much for all this wonderful information that you're giving us. Now, I'll bet at this point in a show that you appear on, there are certain things that you wished I would have asked you at this point that you would like to get out still. Is there anything else we're missing right now?
Yeah, I got a little off track about the book that was published in 1623 and how it connected with the Stratford man.
Right.
And it was in the opening pages. Now, if you know of Shakespeare, you're going to know that famous black and white image that we have seen.
Yes.
Where the head is kind of large and the hair is a little bit weird. That image was the image that appeared in this book in 1623.
Okay.
And the first thing to look at this image is it doesn't portray a writer. It just shows a kind of a well-dressed man of the period. But there's no pen, no book, no laurel leaves. Often writers of the period would be depicted with laurel leaves in their hair. They're like poetic victory.
Yeah.
In other words, there's no sign of this anywhere. In fact, it's actually kind of an ugly image. It's not a very beautiful image. And oddly, across the page of this image is a verse, and it's written by playwright Ben Jonson. And he actually tells the reader, look not upon his image, look at his book. So, on one hand, they're telling you, here's his image. But on the other hand, they're telling you, don't look at this image. So something weird is going on.
Oh, that is very fascinating.
Yes.
Is that, by the way, Katherine, the first time that the standard image of William Shakespeare that we know about today, would that be the first time that was published?
Yes, the very first time it was published in this book. They call this book today the first folio. It was the first edition of this large folio-sized book with containing 36 Shakespeare plays. It was a huge event in all of literature that this book came out, because if it didn't come out, we would not have had 20 Shakespeare plays. We would only have the 16 that were, in various states of condition, mostly, in my opinion, mostly pirated.
Oh, I see.
We have to be very grateful that this book even came out.
Yes. And do you suppose they were, in this book, were the plays more detailed, more information in the plays in this book, or were they the same things that we know about today?
That's a great question. It was a mixed bag.
Oh.
Some of the plays were a little bit enlarged versions. Others were the same bad versions that were already printed.
Right.
That tells me that even the Earl of Oxford's family like that Earl of Montgomery, that even they didn't have the originals, in my opinion.
Right.
So I'm hoping again that they are stashed away somewhere and that they'll be uncovered. But going back to the opening pages of this book, there were tributes to Shakespeare by other writers. The interesting thing is, these other writers, other than Ben Jonson, were not playwrights, which is very odd. But anyway, one author calls Shakespeare the sweet swan of Avon. Your listeners may have heard that expression.
Yeah.
And a poem on another page in these opening pages refers to Shakespeare and his Stratford monument. So you have Avon on one page, Stratford on another page. You put them together, and you think that the great author came from Stratford-Upon-Avon, which is where the Stratford man was born.
Yeah.
So, you connect the dots, and sure enough, as soon as this book came out, people started slowly visiting Stratford-on-Avon.
Okay.
But not before. So again, that's telling you there's something fishy going on.
Yeah, that was part of the cover-up, obviously, at that point.
Yes, and actually there is a Stratford monument in the church in Stratford-on-Avon. There's a monument to Shakespeare. Actually, the name was spelled like the Stratford man's name, which was more pronounced like Shakespeare, Shakespeare. So it was more in tune with his real name, the Stratford man's real name.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you this real quick. This just popped into my head. The image that we have in this book of Shakespeare, does it look at all like the Earl of Oxford? Or do we know what the Earl of Oxford would have looked like?
Yes, we do know. He's on the cover of my book, Shakespeare Suppressed. And we have several other portraits that have survived of him. And no, they do not look alike.
Okay, so then obviously that caricature on the book was to mislead folks as well.
Yeah, we don't have any authentic image. Now, again, this book was printed 7 years after the Stratford man died. So if this is really a picture of the Stratford man, it was done from what image? We don't know.
Right.
Because there is no surviving image. That's another curiosity about the Stratford man.
Well, and now the royalty, the earls of that day, wouldn't they have sat for their own portraits, for, someone to record their images, I would imagine. So do we even know what the Earl of Oxford looked like in any image at all?
Yes. I mentioned we do have several portraits of him.
Okay. Fascinating.
Yeah, one is on the cover of my book.
Oh, good. Wonderful. Yeah. Let's plug your book. Let's do that. We've been remiss at this point to tell people a little bit about the book and where they can get it and all that kind of stuff. Please go ahead and do that for us right now.
Yeah, well, it's called Shakespeare Suppressed, the uncensored truth about Shakespeare and his works. I first printed it in 2011, and it sold out, and then reprinted in 2016, and it's available at Amazon. And also, you can go to my website, shakespearesuppressed.com, if you want to purchase it by a check.
Oh, wonderful. You've got a website there as well. I would imagine you've got some of this forensic information there on your website, potentially?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that would be...
I print the introduction to the book, which really gives you a good overview of the problem.
Yeah.
And then I get it. It's really a history book. It has 600 footnotes. It's really all about contemporary evidence and what contemporaries actually wrote about Shakespeare, which is a different picture of what the Stratford man is believed to be. So
600 footnotes. Oh my, that is That is a research tome. Then I mean that's what lawyers have to do. Obviously, cite every single claim, and citation has to be in the paperwork as well. So congratulations on that work. This is something that will stand the future time as well, I would imagine.
I hope so. But it's the book that I wish I had when I first learned about this, because Charlton Ogburn's book, his debate led me into this.
Yeah.
It's excellent. It's a wonderful book. I highly recommend it. Beautifully written. He was really a master of the language. But there were some dots that were not connected, and I didn't understand certain things. So it's the book that I wish I had. And I really encourage anyone who loves Shakespeare really should look at this book and to really get an idea of what he was like.
And I assume, I don't know if this is true, but I would assume that Mr. Ogburn did not get a chance to read your book. Is he still alive, or did he pass away?
He passed away. I did share some correspondence with him, which was nice.
That would have been fascinating. How did you find this scholar when he was confronted with some of your theories?
Well, like I said, he was passed away before I wrote my book.
Okay.
But yeah, I just had a brief correspondence with him. So.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been fascinating for me at that point to at least correspond with someone who I greatly admired in a certain field like that. That would have been fun.
Yes. Yeah, there's several others who are of that status too in our movement and have done a lot of great research. So, a lot of what I have written is thanks to them too.
Yeah. No, I'll bet we all stand on the shoulders of giants, in whatever interests we're going then. I look back at, things that I've always been interested in and in awe of some of the people that were pioneers in the field that literally put their reputations on the line, back then.
Yes. Actually, the people who are researching the Earl of Oxford are really the pioneers of Shakespeare. I'm bold to say. I think that the current Shakespeare orthodoxy they're basing their works on the wrong man, the wrong model. So consequently, some of their conclusions are coming out wrong. And I think it's time to get on the right track. That's why we really are coming up with the more interesting new information, because we're looking at the right author.
Yeah.
It's natural.
Well, and the way you've laid it out tells me that you have much more depth of personality to deal with in the Earl of Oxford than you do for the person that was born there, the Stratford man. I mean, there just seems to be a dearth of information about this person.
Yes, and the few bits and pieces that we have of the Stratford man, they're not complimentary. Like, for example, he was constantly trying to sue people for money that he lent. In one case, he was issued a restraining order along with two other people for threatening somebody.
Oh my!
Also,
this was the Scrooge character, wasn't it? Oh my!
Yeah, I mean he really wasn't a very admirable person, which I think is a problem that the Orthodox scholars have. When you compare it to the man that wrote, he who steals my purse steals trash, it's just kind of a disconnect, as you're saying.
Oh, definitely. And this is kind of a strange synchronicity as well, is that I had an author on my show that was mentioning the fact that the Charles Dickens that supposedly wrote the Christmas Carol about Scrooge, that character, literally was not the person who wrote that story as well. So we're talking about the idea back in those days where people would literally take other people's products and kind of like claim them as their own. And it got out of hand back in those days as well. I can't believe that we're talking about, the ultimate literary star, and people literally don't even know who we were actually talking about when we talk about William Shakespeare. Did William Shakespeare or this person at in Stratford-Upon-Avon, did he have another name, a middle name, or anything like that we need to know about?
No.
Just Williams, because it wasn't a real name.
It was a real name, William Shakespeare. That was his name, and there were other people of that name too. It was not that unique a name.
Oh well, I would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's.
I came across in my research. There's was a William Shakespeare in the same county as the Stratford man, and he was a soldier.
Oh, fascinating. Yeah.
So I mean, that was not an unusual name. There were other people with that name.
Maybe that is another reason why the cover-up, the Earl of Oxford, potentially picked a name that was very generic. Even, who knows?
Maybe.
Yeah,
that's a possibility. But keep in mind, let's throw another zinger out. The Stratford man, his parents were illiterate.
Oh.
And his surviving daughters were also illiterate.
Someone mentioned that in the chat room for our show.
Oh, yes.
And I didn't want to necessarily bring it up because it was just kind of off the wall. I'm going, you're telling me that William Shakespeare or Shakespeare's children were literally illiterate. Doesn't make any sense that they would be if they indeed were the children of the most famous literary writer of all time. That's fascinating.
And all you have to do is look at Shakespeare's characters, his female characters. They were strong women who, made their own destiny.
Yeah.
A few of them. I mean, they were real heroes. And you don't think that the great author would want his own children to be able to read and write and read his own works?
Yes.
It's nonsensical.
Yeah. I mean, some of the motivation at least of anyone who writes, for a living or just needs to write, has that motivation is to allow potentially their progeny to read it, at one point and to understand it and maybe emulate those things as well that you write. So I can't imagine. You've come up with just an amazing amount of detailed information that I think you could take to a court of law very easily, and prove beyond a preponderance of the evidence, by the way. This is not a criminal standard where you'd have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, This would be basically 50-50, 51% of the evidence would seemingly show that the Earl of Oxford was indeed William Shakespeare.
Or if anything, that the Stratford man was not.
Yes, yeah. No, that would be probably the easier thing to prove, for sure.
And here's one other factoid. The Stratford man's son-in-law, his name was Hall as well.
Oh, are you saying Hall?
Yes.
Oh, my.
He was a doctor, a physician, and he kept medical case books. And there's no mention that his father-in-law was a famous author. And yet he treated a well-known poet called and playwright Michael Drayton. He wrote down in his casebook that he treated this excellent poet. He called him an excellent poet.
Yeah,
but he had nothing to say about his supposedly famous father-in-law.
Dr. Hall. Oh my goodness, what a synchronicity. This is great stuff. Now I have something else to talk about at family reunions here, Oh, that's great stuff. You would think, definitely, in that kind of time, you would boast quite often about a famous relative of yours, and you would think that it would be close enough in proximity as far as their relationship that he would know as well, right?
Right, of course.
Yeah.
And yet, and their child, which is the Stratford man's granddaughter, nobody ever went to her and asked her questions. What was your, and at this time, he was a legend, a great author.
Yeah, right.
But nobody was going to Stratford and talking to his, relations after his death.
Yeah, no interviews, no exposés that they would want to write, that kind of thing.
No, it's extraordinary, and the point is, it was not him.
Yeah. Well, I think you have laid out the case very well. Katherine Chiljan, thank you so much for being my guest tonight here on Spaced Out Sunday. I tell you what, you have brought us up to a real highbrow level here on my show. I want to thank you for spending the 2 hours that we did. It went so quickly. We'll have to have you come back when you have whenever you find that Holy Grail. If you hear something happens, you got to get a hold of us and come back on the show.
I sure will.
Or even if you don't, we will have you back for sure. But thank you so much for being with me today. This is Michael W. Hall here at Spaced Out Sunday, and my special guest, Katherine Chiljan. And her Spaced Out, her actual website is shakespearesuppressed.com. Make sure you go check that out and get that book off of Amazon. This is great stuff. So thank you again, Katherine. We will talk to you again.
Thank you. And you really had a wonderful grasp of everything.
You're so kind. Thank you so much. You just led me along very, very easily on this interview. So
it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Have a wonderful week.
You too.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
There once was a man who had some land in eastern Washington. And on his land, this man, he had a deep, dark hole upon. People came from miles around to throw their trash down in to see how deep the hole was and listen for its end. Then one day, that fateful day, they forced Mel off his land. They paid him off and sent him off down under with a plan. They hid Mel's hole and covered it up so ne'er it could be found, so no one would ever know what's deep down in Mel's ground. Yippee-yi-yay. There's no bottom to Mel's hole. So if you chance to find yourself in Eastern Washington.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me tonight. I want to remind everyone that Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every show. And you can find more information on his music at bumblefoot.com. A very special thanks to everyone listening in at home and in your cars, at work, and in the chat rooms tonight, wherever you are around the world. Remember, this show is currently copyrighted by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thanks for sharing your evening with us tonight, because together, folks, we own the night. Good night, everyone, and we will talk to you next Sunday.